Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my girlfriend because she refused to go after my former roommate for child support? I, 29M, need some perspective on this situation, because my friends are split, and I genuinely don't know if I'm in the wrong here. A little background. My ex-girlfriend Lena, 27F, and I had been dating for about 8 months. Things were going pretty well until this issue came up, and it's kind of been building up for a while now. To give some context, before we started dating, I had a roommate, Chris, 30M, who had a kid with his ex. The kid is now about 3 years old, but Chris hasn't been paying any child support, and his ex has been doing everything she can to keep him involved in their child's life, but it's been a mess. Chris is a solid guy in a lot of ways, but when it comes to responsibility, he's a bit of a screw-up. To be clear, this whole thing happened before Lena and I got together, so it's not like it was a fresh issue when we started dating. Here's where things get tricky. About a month ago, Chris got served with papers for child support. I had no idea this was even happening, and I had actually distanced myself from Chris because of his lack of responsibility. But when I found out, I felt a bit of responsibility, especially since I knew how much his ex was struggling. I still care about him as a friend, and in a weird way I felt like if I could help out I should. Here's the kicker. My girlfriend Lena and I were talking one evening about how things were going with Chris, and she mentioned that she didn't understand why I didn't just step in and offer to help. I told her I had been trying to talk to Chris about his responsibilities and that I wanted him to man up on his own, but she kept saying that he was never going to change if no one pushed him. First, I agreed. Then she dropped a bombshell. She said I should tell his ex that Chris isn't going to step up and that she needs to take it to court if she wants the money. I was like, wait, what? And she just shrugged and said it wasn't my problem. I told her it didn't sit right with me, especially given how much his ex had tried to keep things civil. But Lena kept pushing. Eventually, I got frustrated, and we had a pretty heated argument about it. I didn't expect her to get involved in all of that drama, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt like she just wasn't understanding the depth of the situation. In the end, I told her that I didn't want to be with someone who didn't understand the importance of stepping up for people who are struggling, even if it was messy. I told her it was a deal breaker. She was hurt, and we ended things shortly after that. Since then, I've had some people tell me I overreacted, that I shouldn't have asked her to do something like that. But I'm really torn because it felt like she was pressuring me to get involved in something I didn't feel right doing. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with her over this? So after Lena and I broke up, I thought it would blow over. I mean, yeah, it was a pretty big deal for me, but I figured it was just a rough patch in the relationship. But things didn't go the way I expected. I didn't really talk to anyone about it right away. I felt kind of weird opening up to my friends about the breakup, especially since it was about something as messed up as child support and responsibilities. But eventually, I did. I met up with Jake, 28M, a close friend from college, and we grabbed a drink. When I told him about the breakup, he was kind of surprised, but not because of what happened with Chris and his ex. Jake knows I don't really tolerate people who skirt responsibilities. Hell, I'm the type of guy who'd help a friend move at the drop of a hat, even if they lived an hour away. He understood why I was upset, but then he asked, "Do you think maybe you overreacted a bit? I mean, you're not asking her to go do the heavy lifting, just to make sure Chris doesn't get away with it." And that's when I started second-guessing myself. Did I go too far by cutting ties over something like this? Jake pointed out that maybe Lena was just trying to help, but that didn't sit right with me. She wasn't offering any solutions. It felt like she just wanted me to force Chris into a corner, and I didn't want to be the guy who dragged anyone into a legal battle, especially when it wasn't mine to fight. Sure, Chris is a screw-up, but the fact is, he's still my friend, and I didn't want to be the guy who stirs up the pot even more. I thought it over for a few days, and my thoughts kept coming back to one question. Was I wrong for making this a deal-breaker? Then the text messages started rolling in. I got one from Lena a few days after the breakup. She said she was hurt by how I handled the situation and that she didn't understand why I couldn't just be more proactive. She told me that if I wasn't going to help her make things right, then maybe we weren't a good match. I could tell she was frustrated, and part of me felt like I'd made a huge mistake. She even went as far as saying she couldn't be with someone who was too laid back about other people's problems. It was like she was calling me out for being too chill. A few more texts came from mutual friends, and they were all over the place. Some were like, "Dude, you've got to talk to her and fix this, you're overthinking it." While others were saying, "She sounds toxic if she's pressuring you into taking sides like that. Good call, man." It just made me feel more and more confused. I reached out to Chris after the breakup too, mostly to just check in. He was still being his usual self, avoiding responsibility and acting like everything would just magically work out. He barely responded when I told him about what happened with Lena. To be honest, that part really pissed me off. It wasn't just that he wasn't paying child support, It was the fact that he wasn't even trying to handle it. I'm just sitting there thinking, dude, do you realize you've put your kid in this position? But then again, Chris isn't the one I broke up with. Lena is. So now I'm stuck in this weird limbo, questioning everything. I haven't heard from Lena in about a week now. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I still feel like I did the right thing, but damn, I hate the idea of her being upset with me over something that felt like a huge deal at the time. Maybe I overreacted. But honestly, I still can't get behind how she handled that situation. It felt like she wanted to force me to clean up a mess I had no part in creating. And that's where the line got drawn. I've been trying to move on, but it's hard when everyone keeps asking about it. Honestly, I'm just tired of hearing about how I should have worked it out with her. Am I the a-hole? Okay, so I've been doing a lot of thinking over the past few days. And let me just say, I never expected this whole situation to blow up the way it did. Not in a million years. So after the breakup, I started hanging out with some old buddies from work, just to get my mind off things. It was mostly small talk at first, but eventually, I opened up about the breakup with Lena. One of them, Tom, 31M, who's one of my closest friends, seemed to take a different perspective on things. Tom's one of those guys who always plays devil's advocate, but the guy's been through his own share of relationship struggles. He's been married, divorced, and in a few situations where he had to help friends with heavy stuff like child support, financial messes, and all that. So, when I explained the whole Lena-Chris situation, Tom's reaction was not what I expected. Dude, you need to look at this from a different angle, he said. You're seeing the child support issue as a Lena wants you to do it thing? But have you thought about the fact that she might just be trying to help you carry a burden you already feel? I was kinda stunned. I didn't know how to respond because I never thought about it that way. Tom went on to explain how sometimes, in relationships, people want to share the load. They want to be a part of solving each other's problems. He pointed out that maybe Lena didn't just want me to go after Chris's ex. Maybe she saw this as a way to fix a broken system that was messing with my life, too. I couldn't deny that I'd been frustrated with Chris for a long time. Hell, I'd spent a lot of my time and energy trying to help him out, and it always felt like he was taking advantage of it. But Tom made me realize that I hadn't really given Lena the chance to share in that frustration. She might have just been trying to be there for me, even if it wasn't in the way I thought was right. So now, I'm sitting here wondering if maybe I've been too rigid in my thinking. Maybe I should have tried to see things from her perspective. She wasn't trying to take control. She was trying to step up. The more I thought about it, the more I started to feel like I might have been the one being stubborn and not appreciating her intentions. And then it hit me. What if this wasn't about child support at all? What if it was about me? Maybe Lena was trying to see if I could trust her enough to let her help me with something important. Maybe this was about her trying to prove she could be a partner in a way I wasn't willing to let her be. I had to be honest with myself. I had this weird thing where I felt like I had to fix things on my own, and I think I projected that onto Lena. But now, looking back, maybe I wasn't giving her enough credit for wanting to help me, and for wanting to help Chris's ex too, even if it was complicated. I started texting Lena, just to clear the air. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I felt like I owed it to both of us to at least try and understand where she was coming from. But before I could hit send, my phone buzzed with a text from Chris. It was a long message, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to read it. But I opened it anyway. Hey man, I know I've been avoiding the talk about the kid and child support. Truth is, I've been in a real bad spot. I don't want to drag you into this, but I'm really struggling. I don't know how to deal with all of this, and I'm just scared. Scared of being a bad father. Scared of failing again. That caught me off guard. I'd never heard Chris talk like that. Ever. In fact, I almost didn't believe it at first. He went on to say he was talking to a lawyer now, trying to figure out how to get his life in order. He even admitted he'd been trying to avoid dealing with it because he didn't know how. And then he said something that shook me. I've been a terrible friend, and honestly, if I had been doing the right thing, this whole mess wouldn't have happened. You've always been there for me. I guess I'm just too afraid to ask for help. I don't know what to think. Chris asking for help? The same guy who's always dodged responsibility? Felt like the universe was throwing me a curveball. I started typing my response. But honestly, I didn't even know what to say to him anymore. All I could think was, maybe there's more to this whole situation than I realized. And then it hit me. Lena wasn't just trying to help me with Chris's mess. She was trying to help me understand it better, maybe even understand Chris better. I had some serious thinking to do. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with Lena without fully understanding what she was trying to do? Or am I just overcomplicating things? Alright, so after all the back and forth with Chris, the realization about Lena, and a lot of self-reflection, I think I've finally come to a place where I can see things more clearly. First off, I did end up replying to Chris's message. We had a long talk about what he'd been going through, and honestly, I don't think I've ever heard him this vulnerable before. For the first time in a long time, I could see that he actually cared about his kid. The whole thing with him avoiding the child support was rooted in fear. Fear of failure. Fear of being a deadbeat. I mean, he's not out of the woods yet, but hearing him talk like that made me feel a little better. I could see that he wasn't trying to dodge responsibility on purpose. He was just messed up in his own way. So I decided to reach out to Lena. I had to be honest with myself about how I felt. And to be completely real, I felt like I was being way too stubborn about the whole thing. The whole child support issue was such a trigger for me because I don't like seeing people I care about flake out on responsibilities, but I also didn't give Lena the chance to show me how she might want to be involved in the process of fixing it. I called her. It was weird at first. We hadn't talked in a while, and I wasn't sure how she'd react. But the moment she picked up, I just started talking. I apologized. I told her I hadn't given her the benefit of the doubt, and that I was wrong for shutting her out over it. She was quiet for a minute, and then she just said, "I don't want to be with someone who isn't willing to let me in." That stung. But it was the truth. I had been so busy focusing on my own perspective, my own sense of what was right or wrong, that I didn't realize she just wanted to be there. Not to solve the problem, but to understand it with me. I told her I was sorry, that I didn't realize how much I was pushing her away. She said it wasn't just about child support. It was about how I was shutting her out from everything. And I had to admit she was right. I had this wall up, and I didn't even know I was doing it. She said something that really stuck with me. Relationships aren't just about agreeing on everything. They're about figuring out how to deal with things together. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I've been treating this like some sort of issue I had to solve on my own. But what she was saying was that a relationship should be about mutual support. It was never about me needing to do everything myself. It was about learning how to open up to someone who was willing to help, even if they didn't always have the same approach I would have. We ended up talking for a while. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but it felt like we had reached a place where we could actually understand each other. I told her that I didn't want to let this be the reason we ended things, but at the same time, I didn't want to keep pretending that everything was perfect. I wanted to be better at this, at being open, at being honest, at being vulnerable with her. She said that she was willing to try again, but she needed to know that I was committed to being less rigid in how I approach things, and to trust her more. I agreed. So, to answer everyone's burning question, we're not back together yet. But we're working on it. Slowly. Honestly, I don't even know if we'll get there, but I feel like I'm in a better place now than I was before. It's funny, all this time I thought the issue was about Chris and his kid, but it turns out the real issue was about me and my inability to let someone else into my problems. I was so focused on trying to fix things on my own that I didn't realize I was pushing away the one person who actually wanted to help me. But I'll be honest, I don't regret breaking up. Sometimes you need that space to figure out what's really important and what kind of person you want to be. In the end, I think I learned more about myself than I did about anyone else. So, is it the end? I don't know. But for now, I'm just focused on making sure I don't make the same mistake twice. Whether it's with Lena, Chris, or anyone else. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with Lena in the first place? Or did I do the right thing? If this story kept you hooked, give it a like, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more.